The reality of the death part there and then coming to America now has been such a strong contrast for me, and the full circle of running with a baby to the hospital, that we find, and finding out that medically he's fine, and then starting to care for him and love him in our home, and I get to sleep with him, and my husband and my children get to be a part of that ministry to this child. And then now to come here and see that child as a toddler in his family. There's no reward like that. So I count myself extremely blessed. And I'm humbled daily to be able to do this. Because this is the closest we get to saving grace and seeing what the grace of our Father has brought us to when He adopted us back into the kingdom in spite of our sin and in spite of our frailties and inadequacies and so on. And to just see the completion of that child's life is such a hope for me, because it's very hopeless there. And to walk in that oppression all the time can be very depressing. But to then come back here and see how parents embrace these children, it is not far removed from my own personal experience with welcoming our own children into our lives and into our arms. So I can go there very easily. It is very overwhelming, but it is... it's more than warm fuzzies. It is a reality of we are doing this in God's kingdom. This is a ministry. This is not a paid position, a job. It's so far beyond that. This is something that we get to be called to, and that we have a choice to accept with all its strings attached to it. So I really want to encourage families to continue to do what God has called you to do. If He has called you to raise Ethiopian children in your family, He will give you the grace and everything you need and your child needs. Continue to walk that out with the risk that you took when you said yes at first. It doesn't stop here. You are only starting to see the seed of what God is about to do in the nations of Africa as a result of our obedience to the call of Him when He called us to take care of the orphans and the widows. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. Thank you for being so encouraging to what God has called you through CWA. It is opening doors and opportunities to ministry that we don't even know yet the greatness of it. So it's a daily walk of grace and a daily walk by faith.
When our family were missionaries in South Africa, we learned about the Cape of Good Hope and how at the point of that continent of Africa, the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean meet, and some of the most treacherous waters in the world are navigated there by the ships, and many shipwrecks have occurred over the years. And I liken that to my job as a case manager, because I have the joy of working as the families come into the point where their dossier is ready and they're sent to Ethiopia and prepared to receive a referral. The children are being prepared, on the other hand, by Stephne and others who are running orphanages and rescuing those children. And sometimes those waters where the children and the families meet are very treacherous, and sometimes they're exciting and fulfilling. But one of the most heartwarming things that happened while I was in Ethiopia for an extended period of time last summer was being able to go to a couple of the orphanages and load up a van full of these children that were going to Addis to be prepared to meet with their families, and watching the nannies cry as they relinquished these children that they'd cared for and the love that they had shown them. And the older children who stood there, and I knew those children didn't have families yet, And yet they were beaming because they knew of the opportunity that these little ones were going to have a family to love them and care for them. And it just made my heart so grateful and so full to know that I'm a part of the ones that God has chosen to have families here. We know that in a country where there are 5 to 7 million orphans, that adoption is only a small part. It's certainly not a solution for poverty, and it's not a solution for the problems of Ethiopia, but it is a part of God's plan for some of those children. And just to see the love that goes into rescuing those lives, as Stephanie says, out of the earth, and giving them a future and a hope.